Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm gonna give you guys a chance to come into the conversation. I hope you guys are doing well today. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins from drboycetv.com. I want to say welcome to everybody who just came in. And also, as you guys know, on drboycetv.com, which is the home for intelligent Black people, we have Powernomics Thursday, where Dr. Claud Anderson comes in. And Dr. Claud Anderson, as you may know, or you should know, he is the author of several very interesting books: Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2, The Black History Reader, many other books. His website is powernomics.com. And without further ado, I'd like to ask my friend, Dr. Claud Anderson, how are you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you, buddy, for asking.
Yes, well, I'm always happy that you're here, and I like the fact that you're able to give us clarity on economic and political issues that we don't get anywhere else. And I know the people here have a lot of respect for you. So I hope as you guys come in, you will greet Dr. Anderson and say hello. Jazzo says he owns 3 of your books. Well, go ahead and make sure you fill out, get the whole collection. Go to powernomics.com. There's a whole collection, a whole set of all of his books. This is the premier scholar that everybody should learn from. One of the people that everybody have in their life. Powernomics is considered to be the economic Bible for Black America. It was named that as such, I think, by Ebony magazine. Well, I don't know if it was Ebony or Essence. Which one was it that said that Powernomics was the Black economic Bible?
Yeah, that was Ebony and Jet said that, and now also the other, can't think of the other companies, but they all declared those would be second Bibles for Black folk.
Yeah. What now? Just speaking of Ebony, I don't know if you saw where Ebony kind of died off. First they got sold. I guess they sold the Ebony and Jet brands, and then Johnson Publishing, I think, is about to go bankrupt. I think they owe George Lucas, the Star Wars guy. I think they owe him about $12 million. And I think from what I read, they're declaring bankruptcy or close to it. What do you think was the cause of the fall? I mean, those were important publications for Black folks that we own. What do you think? What do you think went wrong right there?
The same thing, Boyce. I've been telling you and your supporters for about 10 or 15 years. I told Black folk that back in 1963, it was integration. Anybody who got more than a 3rd grade education could figure that out. Present company excluded, okay? Because I mean, integration means dispersing, reduction, diluting, watering down, ignoring. And Johnson, as long as we had our communities and a sense of communities back prior to the integration movement, Black folk depended on special information sources coming strictly for Blacks. They had Afro-American newspapers. They had a bunch of newspapers in the communities. They had a Jet and Ebony magazines, and they focused on Black issues. But as soon as social integration came, they followed Martin Luther King down this dead end alley. Guess what happened? They were told, well, see, the larger dominant society says, well, now that we're socially integrated, you can't talk about race issues anymore. So you got to focus on something other than race now, because we're going into a post-racist period. And so all of a sudden they got to depend on white people to buy their ads, like Ford Motor Car Company and McDonald's and Burger King's. And those people told them, focus on some other issues. So guess what Black folk did? They started focusing strictly on entertainment, on clothing, dress, on personalities. They were forced to go to personalities and entertainment. And otherwise whites wouldn't buy it, particularly the Jewish community. Say, we're gonna buy no ads in your paper. You're gonna talk about racial issues. And so Black folk went over and started depending on white money, just like the Civil Rights Organization, depending on white money. They no longer need the Civil Rights Organization, no longer needed Black folks' nickels and pennies. So they went to corporate dollars in the white community. And that's why the Urban League and LSP now is irrelevant and going out of business and unnecessary. And that's why we lost all of our media. And but go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that's an interesting perspective, because I think that there are a lot of people who wonder what happened with Ebony and Jet, and I the whole thing about integration. I had not processed that part. I know what integration did to other Black businesses, but you're right. I remember with Ebony doing a video in the 1950s. Did any of y'all see that video? It was called How to Sell to the Negro. And they did the video and they were doing it. You could tell the video was being done. It seemed like it was being done for white corporations to teach corporations how to get money out of the hands of black consumers. Like they were almost like you think about like sex trafficking, you know, the pimp bringing the prostitute, you know, and saying, here, this, you know, you do what you want, you know, almost like we were being pimped to the white corporations. And Ebony was kind of saying, pay us money and we will get you black customers. We will get black dollars flowing out of the black community. I don't know if that's a interpretation of it, but it seemed like, you know, to your point, you know, that drive to integration, the temptation is you can make a lot of fast money and much bigger money. But the problem is that it does lead to that dilution you're talking about, because it seemed like later on, the white money, when the white money stopped flowing, Ebony couldn't function anymore. They did not know how to operate.
Right. But see, they couldn't figure out a very simple thing. It's better. It is absolutely better. Instead of talking about population dominance between whites and black minorities, it's always best to be a big fish in a small pond and being a little fish in a large pond. Let me tell you that. You understand what I'm saying? It's better to be, see, when Ebony, Tan magazine, Jet magazine, and I can't think of the other 2 or 3 magazines were very popular in the black community. Everybody lived by those things. They had Afro-American newspapers and 2 or 3 other newspapers. Every week, people go out and buy those damn newspapers to get the latest stuff about black folk. But yes, those black companies didn't have a large part of money, but what was there in the black community, they were getting all of it, Boyce Watkins. They were getting all of it. They got 100% of it. And now what happened? Now they're socially integrated, and guess what? They don't get any of it, because now whites get it all. I'm trying to figure out another way to say that to you. Let's take a small business. I tell you, let's take the cab company, the bus company, my family. We had the Safe Bus Company. We got all the money that blacks were spending on riding the buses. It might not have been that much compared to white people, but it was ours. We got every penny, 100% coming out of the black community, came to the Safe Bus Company in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Guess what? When they integrated, went to the Duke Power Company, guess what? Safe Bus Company had to go out of business because now the blacks want to ride the white buses. I'm trying to figure out how else to say that to you. Is that it's better, best way I can say it to you, it's better always in terms of economic empowerment to be a big fish in a small pond than to be a little fish in a big pond. Because a little fish, anybody can gobble you up. They don't need you in a big baby. If I go out, if I'm a little small fish in an ocean, who cares? But if I got a small lake and a small pond and I'm the biggest fish there, I'm somebody important. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Dominate in politics, dominate in business. That's why I always talk about practice. Always control your own community and your own funds before you try to go into a bigger community. But I don't ever see blacks doing that. Blacks say, I'm gonna start me a business. I'm gonna put up my business out in the white community because that way I can get all the white money. Wrong. See, that's why these immigrants say the first time I start a business in your own neighborhood first and control your own damn market and your own disposable income before you try to go into a big, larger market. That's what I'm saying to you. But black folk don't understand that. That's what happened to Jet and the Johnsons. I was when I was with the president, I met with Johnson and Andy Young and I. Johnson, the other Johnson with the hair, but not with the hair products. Remember that cosmetics? They wanted to go into Africa. They said, no, we go into Africa. All those black folk in Africa. Oh man, we go in there and start selling cosmetics, lipstick, powder, and everything for women. We could make a killing. We could make billions and billions of dollars by going into Africa. And Andy and I was telling about it, they went over to Africa, and guess what? They set up, they dumped, I don't know how many millions of dollars into Nigeria first. They set up a factory for manufacturing products and cosmetics for black women, okay? They're gonna make a fortune. Guess what? The power structure in Nigeria from whites down through the blacks, they nationalized. And so they nationalized most of the money to where all the money that Johnson had put in, it belonged to the local government. Then they demanded that that 51% of the employees over there be local people that can control everything, the management. And so All of a sudden, Johnson now and cosmetics and products in the United States folded up, had to go out of business. Because why? They went from the United States producing products for Black women here and gonna try to deal with the whole continent of Africa. And they became a small fish in Africa, where over here in the United States, they were a big fish.
Wow, I did not know. You know, it's funny that you mentioned that. And by the way, I'm talking to Dr. Claud Anderson. He's the author of the book, Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, the Black History Reader, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. Everybody, his website is powernomics.com. Shout out your city so people can know what city you're in so we can all connect. Shout out your city. Also, if you're on Facebook, if you could share to your Facebook page, that will help us a lot because they deboost Black posts. When Black people go live, what they do is they minimize the reach of the posts, because they have algorithms to do that. So we want to fight back against the algorithm. If you could share to your Facebook page, we'd appreciate it. If you're on YouTube, lots of comments, likes, and shares helps. Also, sharing the link as much as you can. We could really use your help. But Dr. Anderson, what I'll say is, what you're saying, I like this. It reminds me of what led me to really begin to follow and support what you do. Is that when I started reading Powernomics and Black Labor, White Wealth, I read that first. I liked that book because it confirmed everything that I had believed, but nobody was telling me. I wasn't learning this in school. I went to a white university. They didn't teach me this.
I can tell you that.
Yeah, but I had just kind of put these things together, because I had a lot of education in economics, and I was like, wait, that makes no sense, and that was the advantage of I guess me being a professor, is that eventually you get to a point where you get past the textbooks and what people are telling you, and you start creating your own logic. And one of the things that I remember was that when we started doing stuff with the Black Business School, first thing people told us is, a lot of people said, don't put the word Black in your title, because you're gonna limit yourself. You're limiting yourself. I don't know if anybody else has had that happen where they've told you, don't make your business Black. Don't say Black. Don't put the word Black in the name of your business because you limit yourself. And I remember saying like, well, but I love Black people, and I believe Black people should be top priority, and we are here to solve the Black problem. And I believe that people will appreciate the fact that we are focused. That we are focused. This is our niche. This is our area. This is our arena. We ain't going nowhere. And this is all we think about all day. I said, that's better to me than somebody who says, oh, we try to do everything for everybody and we try to include everyone. I said, I don't even know how to operate in that space, because you end up trying to do so much that you end up doing nothing. You try to become so much to so many people that you become nothing to no one. What do you think about that?
Well, you're absolutely right. See, and to take it on a much more global basis. For instance, Black folk have an annual disposable income, I mentioned this to you before, of about $1.3 trillion. Now that's a hell of a lot of money for a population of that's about 46 million Black folk in America. And in terms of their annual disposable income, they got a 1.3 trillion, okay? Trickling through their hands. Now people say that's a lot of money. Yes, it is a lot of money. But if you base it out based on the population and compare it to the United States that got trillions and trillions of dollars, it's chicken change. Out of about maybe $400 trillion on the earth is disposable income. You got chicken change money. You know why it's chicken change money? Because it's not aggregated. It's disaggregated all over the United States. If you talk about, we got for Blacks from San Diego to Boston, we got $1 trillion. Who cares? That's chicken change money. It only becomes important when you pool it together, when you start spending your money collectively. Now, supposing all of a sudden at 1.3 trillion, Black folks say, we're going to practice, as you telling your students all the time, we're going to start practicing group economics, group politics. Now at 1.3 trillion, Dr. Watkins, now you say we're gonna practice group economics, which is based on a very simple premise. I say my students in college, typically, for instance, every group uses some kind of code of conduct in spending their money. Hispanic money usually bounces 6 and 7 times before it leaves their community. White money bounces 8 to 12 times before it leaves their community. Arabs and Asian money bounces 13 and 14 times before it leaves their hands. Jewish money bounces 18 times. Black money doesn't bounce once because you don't have a community to bounce it in. But suppose Black folk were to come together and take that 1.3 trillion and say, let's do what all the other groups do. Let's do what the mainstream society does. Let's spend our money with our own people. What does that mean, spend our money on our own people if you're white? White folks boycott everybody else's community, particularly black communities. They boycott you. Whites ain't putting no money into no black stores, no white businesses. If you ever see a white person come to a black neighborhood, go into a black store and buy a black product, I want you to take a picture of it. That can be very valuable one day as a souvenir or something. White folks boycott black businesses. But if you had that $1.3 trillion together, aggregated, where black folk had a sense of community or a very broad community, and say, now we're going to make our $1.3 trillion bounce 8 to 12 times. Let's say it bounces 10 times. That'd give you over $100 trillion.
Oh, you mean actually 10 trillion, right?
I mean 10 trillion. I'm sorry, 10 trillion. You got over 10 trillion now.
There's still a lot of money though.
Yeah, I just jumped to 100. But I was thinking about when I said that, I was talking about Detroit, Michigan, and Detroit, Michigan had talking about their annual disposable income in Detroit, and that I was trying to convince them to spend their money collectively, and they had about four, I guess altogether about $8 or $9 billion passing through their hands, through the university and the city service and everything else. I said, multiply that by 10. Okay, if you got $10 billion in Detroit, Michigan, multiply it by 10, and what would that give you then?
100 billion.
That's it. So that's why I just slipped and said that a few minutes ago. That's where that came from. But you're right. It's only 10 billion. But think about what 10 billion could do for black folk.
You mean 10 trillion?
10 trillion. I'm sorry. Yeah. See, I'm trying to.
Oh, it's okay.
I'm trying to think about Detroit and 12. Yeah. If you got $10 billion now that means that every black person that now he would, the money he's spending, he would see 10, 11 times passing through his hands. You see what I'm saying? And let me give another example. And I know I should be taking you off the topic for a second.
No.
I'm gonna talk about Asians, for instance, because what most people don't know is that Trump, back in May, officially established a commission for economically empowering Asians and Pacific Islanders in this country. He set up a special commission where that would in every agency, Department of Commerce, Energy, every agency, these people can go down straight to them for economic opportunities. This was enacted by the Federal Register back in May of 2019 this year. Blacks don't know this. And the same thing, Obama did the same thing back earlier with Indians, and he set up with gays and everybody else. And Bush did it in the late 1990s. But let's go back and deal with that a second. Now they're gonna try to empower, Bush wants to empower the Asians in this country through economic empowerment by giving them a heads up, by giving them an advantage over blacks and everybody else. Now, look at what's happening now. Here, Asians are very tight, cohesive community. They're very tight knit. They function, they make their money bounce. Almost 95% of all Asians will identify with their own community, spend their money with their own people. Okay? That's why 1 out of every 10 Asians in America are in business. Right now, Asians right now, let me show you something a second. Let me pull it back from you so you can see this. You see that now? You see this chart? This chart in the here are blacks down here at the bottom. You see that? Mm-hmm. Blacks got a median family income of 26,000. Here, Asians at the top. Up here, they got about 74, but in reality today it's 78,000. Median family household income is about 78,000. Blacks down here at 26. Now, why is that? Because Asians spend their money with their own people. They practice group economics. That's why this country, what blacks don't know, is that Asians got about 18 million Asians in the United States. And guess what? It just in business alone, 1 out of every 10 Asians in business. And what black folk don't know is like out of all the hotels in the United States, do you know that 45% of all the hotels in the United States are owned by Asians or controlled by Asians? They practice group economics and group politics. And 98% of them work for their own people in their own communities. They practice it so that their money bounces round and round. That's what I'm saying. Aggregate your money. I'm saying a lot. I might be confusing you on a lot of these things. I'm sorry.
It's not confusing at all, because what you're basically saying, and I want everybody listening to understand, to get this, and this is one interpretation of it, is that we talk about reparations and what the government owes black people, which we know is a real thing. I think it's deserved, everything else. But the thing is, if we got a reparations package, let's say it's $1 trillion. or even 2 trillion, which would be incredibly generous in the sense that I believe that it would take a lot for them to get that far. I don't think they would. It's not enough, but I don't even know if they would even get that far. But you're saying, and pay attention, Black people, you're saying that just by keeping the money in our community and letting the dollars bounce,
right,
we get a multiplier effect. Like we can give ourselves a $10 billion a year bump.
That's right.
In Black annual income just by letting our dollars bounce amongst each other. Just by, so basically Artemis and Rachel and Sylvester, if I spend my money with Sylvester, he spends his money with Rachel, and then she spends her money with Artemis, then that $1 has become $4. So your money multiplies when you keep it in your community. And that's Dr. Anderson, what you're saying is in alignment. I think in a previous life we were related because our core values in the Black Business School, we believe in what we call the Black Core of 3. Black people should educate our own children, not let white people do it, not let anybody do it. We should create our own jobs. We need more entrepreneurs than we need almost anything else, and we should support Black businesses. If we just did that last part of supporting Black businesses, you're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar annual repeating reparations package that we could pass on our own. We don't need no bill in Congress to give us that. We don't need no legislators. We ain't got to go beg Mitch McConnell and all these other people that hate us. We can do that ourselves. So to me, it don't matter if Mitch McConnell hates you. What matters is, why do you keep hating yourself? That's the question we got to ask ourselves. Why do you hate yourself more than Mitch McConnell hates you? Because don't nobody hate you. No, you hate us more than ourselves sometimes, because we have the solution. We have the key. We have everything we need right now. I think George Fraser uses that statement where he says, we have everything we need except for us. And if we don't get us, then we ain't gonna have nothing. That's how I see it, Dr. Anderson.
Right, you're absolutely right. And that's why I just mentioned this thing about Donald Trump commissioning almost special empowerment programs for Asians and Pacific Islanders, as an example. That every department in the federal government must have a commission established where these people can directly contact them and bypass everything else. They can go straight to these people to get and address their needs and interests in terms of what they need in economics for business opportunities. Now, and the reason it's really sad is because here Asians, as I indicated in that chart, most of these Asians didn't even start coming into the country until about 1985 and 1980. That's when most of these Asians started coming in the country. They only been here about less than about 40, 50 years. And yet, think about this. They got the highest incomes in the country, Asian, because they stick together. Highest incomes. 1 out of every 10 Asians go into business. Did you know that?
Yeah.
And listen to this. And 1 out of every 10 Asians are millionaires. Did you know that?
That I did not know.
Okay, I'm just giving you. And guess what? And because they're practicing group economics, 96 to 97% of them work in their own communities for their own people. And they don't let the money out of there, and they like in the Wall Street Journal today, they don't hire Black folk. They spend their money with their own people and hire their own people. You're never gonna see it go into a Chinese restaurant and see some Blacks waiting on tables or cooking and everything. They say, we don't play that. We practice group economics. And that's why in my books, Powernomics and Black Labor, White Wealth, as you've indicated so beautifully, is saying, why don't you practice group economics? And there's a spin-off collateral effect from that. If you practice group economics, as I said in all my books, as like Asians do, then you wouldn't have all these people in prisons. Here, Black folk with the lowest income on that sheet is Black folk at 26,000, where Asians at 78. And guess what? Look at the damage. If I go to look at the prison situation, 51% of all the national prisons in the United States are Black folk. Did you know that? 51% of our prisoners are Blacks. Now, look at that. And you say, well, how many Asians there? Almost zero. You look at the unemployment rate in the country for Black folk. It's somewhere, now, contrary to what you hear on the TV about Trump, but I've reduced the unemployment rate to where it's never been that low. We got a zero unemployment. That's a lie. Black national structural unemployment is over 35%. 48 in some of the cities, and 51% in New York. Now, but look at the Asians. Are there any Asians in unemployment? No, Asians don't have any unemployed people, basically. They don't have any unemployment. There's a direct relationship between having wealth and practicing group economics and having all these social problems. If you practice group economics, take that little money you got, the $1.3 trillion, to make it bounce 8 to 10 times minimally, you wouldn't have all these people in prison. You wouldn't have all these people on the welfare. You wouldn't have all these dysfunctional schools. You wouldn't have where you got 1% of businesses of any significance. They are the 1 out of every 10 in businesses. Blacks just don't understand. That's why I wrote those books. And it's just hard to get Blacks to understand what you understand so well, Dr. Boyce. That's why I have such great respect for you.
Oh, well, the respect is returned, and I agree with you. You know, you talk about dysfunctional, underperforming schools. Because I had a lady on last night, Cheryl Irvin, who she just founded an Afrocentric school down in Florida called the New Alpha School. And one of the things that I thought about after that conversation is how the economics and the education, it's like a double whammy sort, in the sense that you get these non-Black folks that are building, that create these schools in our community. The schools are bad, underperforming, don't educate Black kids, brainwash them to do all the wrong things for their community, even when they're successful. And so 2 things are happening. One, they're making money off of Black people as a commodity. You know, they get money for running these schools and you know, shepherding Black children through like sheep. So they're making money off of you. And then 2, they're killing your ability to build economic structure and build wealth in your community, because they're undereducating or miseducating your children. So they either don't educate the child where they can't go out and they can't make a living for the community, they can't bring wealth in, or they miseducate the child where they grow up believing that my job as an educated Black person is to go work for a white person, right? And give my best and give all my creative energy, my talents to another community. So either way, there's no part of that whole process. When you talk about, say, public schools, things like that, there's no part of that process where you can see a direct linkage between the success of those schools and the success of the Black community. You can't, there's no connection. So I think it's a matter of really thinking about our pipelines. You know, what are our pipelines for, just the same way the Russians have pipelines when they need to get oil to a certain area. They'll say, we build a pipeline that goes through Alaska or whatever, or not Alaska, but you know, in Siberia or whatever, and we're going to get the oil to the destination. We got to figure out what are our pipelines, because right now we know white folks got pipelines. They got the school to prison pipeline. You know, they got the Black child to the unemployment line pipeline. They got the pipeline for the educated Negro to get you into student loan debt, so they can make trillions of dollars off you from all those student loans they give you, and then have you go and commit economic slavery for white folks. I mean, the more you think about the system and the way it's designed, the more concerned and alarmed a person is going to get, because even if you think about the student loan thing, think about this. You're being educated to believe that you're supposed to go $200,000 in debt to white folks to get a degree so that you can spend the rest of your life in economic slavery, paying off the debt that you picked up while you were in college. And these are the educated Black people. So if your most educated, most successful people are becoming slaves, then is it no surprise that your whole community is in the midst of economic slavery and going backward? It's no surprise at all. You know, so I think rethinking all these systems is really important. And I don't want to ask you about this, if you don't mind, because you brought this up, but I want to make sure you get a chance to express yourself on this. You were actually you brought an article to my attention about a Black man who and his brother who went to prison protecting their family land, and this situation where the land was being taken and they just, you know, stood their ground and ended up going to jail for it. It seems that it's reflective of a bigger problem, that Black land has been lost, you know, in mass quantities for a very long time, if I'm not mistaken, about 100 years now. So I guess so we can piece it together. Can you kind of talk about what's going on as far as the land? I don't think a lot of people know this. You guys tell me if you know this, but I didn't know that we had so much land before and relative to what we have now, like they were going backwards in terms of land ownership. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, we are going backwards. The ironic thing is that Black folk, when they came out of slavery with and totally ill-educated or non-educated, they had more damn sense than the Blacks got today. Did you know that Those blacks came out after 360 years of slavery. When they came out of slavery, Dr. Watkins, in 1866, they said, we are free. First thing they asked for was for some land. They said, we want some land, because they figured it out from white folk. That's where the wealth is. The wealth is buried in the land. And so what they did, they set out, sort of pooling in little pennies here and there, wherever they could save money. And there's from about 1866 up until about 1920, in that time period. Now, see how many years that is? 66, 76, 86, 96, 106, 120. According to the census in 1920, guess what? Those poor blacks who had come out of slavery, no education, 96% could not even read and write. But guess what they did? They went and saved their pennies and bought over 20 million acres of land in the United States.
Wow.
They picked up 20 million acres according to the census by 1920. That's from 1866. You've never seen that thing happen before. People coming out of slavery, no education. They had more damn sense than these half-ass educated blacks got today that don't want to own a damn thing. Don't want to own it. All I want to be is guest and what everybody else owns. Land is a key. That's where all the wealth is buried. Those poor blacks coming out of slavery knew that. They acquired 20 million acres by 1920. Now, watch what happens now. By 1920, when they came out of slavery and they acquired all this land, they came back after World War I, and they wanted to demand more rights and freedoms. And by that time, whites started bringing in technology and displacing them in the South. And so those blacks had to start going north then. They started abandoning their land. And so by 1950, those blacks, so many blacks migrated north and left their land in the South that had been reduced down to something like about a little less than 5 or 6 million acres left. They lost almost 15 million acres of land from 1920 up to about 1950 because they went looking for jobs up north in the chemical factories, the automobile factories, the tire factories. They just want a job. They abandoned their land. And white folk got all these schemes for taking land from black folk because they know most blacks don't have wills. They don't have wills to protect their land so that they can to pass it on to their descendants. Secondly, they don't pay the taxes. So when the spring comes, white folk always read the pages, the tax rolls. Every spring, they find out what land's going up for sale for unpaid taxes. They jump black folk land just like that. Every spring, they jump into black land. And to make a long story short, rather than give you a lecture, now black folk, when I wrote this last proposal for how they bring black folks together with their land and started using it for raising hemp and raising aquaculture and hydroponics, I wrote a sort of a Bible for that. You had about 4 million acres of black land left about 3 or 4 years ago. Now, based on the stuff you're talking about, is now down to 350 on the 350 million acres of land left. They reduced it down to about 350 million acres of land left for black folk. That's in the South. And know where it is? It runs on the black belt, running from about Pennsylvania all the way down to Texas. The old cotton belt, the old black, they call it black belt. That's where the remaining black land is. But blacks out there fighting, farmers are struggling like hell right now to hold on to that 350 they got left. They've gone all the way down to almost nothing. And so what you're talking about, the point you're raising with this, what that is, those are two black men there. Nobody passed, they live on that land since slavery, but now it's being taken away from them. They can't hold on to it because white folk play a little game. Like for instance, not only when blacks move up north and don't pay the taxes, don't watch the tax rolls, but what white folks do, they go into these various courthouses and burn up half the damn records. And black folk can't prove they own the land, even when they bought it. And so that's why you get that one. And here right now in Washington, D.C., holding their ground. Again, you got two blacks here in Washington, D.C., over in Virginia. They got that right now. This came out last week. They're taking the land away from them. But here's the biggest land theft that's coming up. Black folk don't understand I told you before, what the American dream was. What was the American dream? I told you was based on two things, Dr. Watkins. What was that?
The American dream?
Yeah. This is not a test. I'm just asking you.
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah. The American dream is based on two things: free land, Indian land, and free black labor. Okay, That's what whites came here for, looking for land. and see what and they call that the American dream. What American dream now is the same thing. But immigrants are coming to the country to get the land, and whites, they're going to go in and gentrify a little bit of land that blacks got across this country. They're going to gentrify it and get it again, free in all these urban areas. Every major city right now is going to be gentrified. All these major black cities on this thing called the Opportunity Act and all this kind of thing. Young whites, old whites, immigrants going to go into every major black area. And remember this, 70% of all the blacks in the United States live around 10 large metropolitan areas. And most of them in there, black folk own less land now than they did after when they came out of slavery. They're taking it away from them. Gentrification. Washington, D.C. I came to Washington, D.C. with President Carter back in 1978. Washington, D.C. was known as Chocolate City. 78% of its city was black. They're down now like about 34% now, 35%. They're gone down, they're gone. PG County, right outside of Washington, D.C., was known nationally as having the highest concentration of blacks, educated blacks, and wealthy blacks. Now immigrants are taking that over. Whites taking over PG County. Detroit, Michigan, it was 92% black. It has been totally gentrified now. Whites own almost everything in that city and immigrants own it. Blacks own practically nothing in the city of Detroit. That's going to happen in every city: Philadelphia, Chicago, Detroit, Michigan, St. Louis, Atlanta, Georgia. They're going to gentrify the land under the same act they used during slavery, call it the American dream. The American dream means immigrants come to this country, you can go right into those urban cities and you can get the land free along with the young whites. And so they're going to put all these blacks out of business. That's what's happening in this article. That's happening that you just asked about down in South Carolina. And the one over here where blacks, they have right here in Virginia. They're taking the land away from blacks for all those 3 or 4 reasons I just told you.
Wow. Everybody who's watching, I was speaking with Dr. Claud Anderson. He's the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. You can go check out his website. I hope you'll support it. Put those books in your home. They should be the first books your children read, because I'm encouraging everybody to put a black business school in your home. Start with those books. You can go to powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. Please hit the thumbs up button. Please hit the share button. If you're on Facebook, take 1 second, please, and share it to your page. If you're on YouTube, please take 1 second, hit the thumbs up button. Also, I want to remind everybody, if you live in or you want to fly into Chicago, I'll be doing an investment seminar in Chicago in 3 days. You can learn more by going to drboycechicago.com. It's a day-long seminar. We're going to talk about investing and how to get started as an investor, and everything you need to know you're going to learn in that day. You'll walk out of there as an investor, and then also you get free access to my masterclass as an add-on if you'd like to join. So go to drboycechicago.com. And also next month, Dr. Anderson and I will be in Los Angeles for Harvest Festival Day. Harvest Festival Day is the holiday Dr. Anderson created. He's the founder of Harvest Festival Day. It is every year. It's going to be the second Saturday in August. Every year, second Saturday in August. This year, it's going to be August 10th. So we're reaching out. We've been connected with Dr. Rosie Milligan out there. We're going to do an event out there. I'll also do an investment seminar as well. You can learn more about what we're going to do by going to drboycelosangeles.com. That's drboycelosangeles.com. Please hit that thumbs up button before we move on. So Dr. Anderson, let me read something to you about this land loss issue. And this is from ProRepublica.org. And they told the story about the 2 black men who got 8 years in jail because they refused to let go of their family land. They have been swindled out of it, and they stood up. And here's a picture. This is the article. I hope everybody will read it because it's something that's heavy, and it's something that I think all of us need to be educated on. The brothers' names are Melvin Davis and LaCurtis Reels. Melvin Davis and LaCurtis Reels. So I want to do our due diligence on this channel to share this with you all so that you all can share it with everyone else. Between all of us put together, all of us working together, maybe 10, 20,000 people that watch this video, whatever the number is, we could probably reach 1 million people or more in the black community to let them know what is happening, and also to let them know, let them know the truth, the truth about what's happened with our community and ways that we can fight back. So Dr. Anderson, I'm gonna tell you this. One of the things I was thinking about when I was looking at the statistics, it kind of blew my mind when they said that between 1910 and 1997, African Americans lost 90% of their farmland. Nathan Rosenberg, who's a lawyer and researcher with a group that is actually helping to fight this issue. I don't have the name of the group in front of me. Oh, the American Bar Association's Property Task Force. He says that if you want to understand wealth and inequality in this country, you have to understand Black land laws. He says that Black people have lost hundreds of billions of dollars, from this lost land, largely due to the Department of Agriculture, who has actually recognized that that heirs property, which is a way that land is inherited through heirs, that it's the quote leading cause of Black involuntary land loss. They said heirs property is estimated to make up more than a third of all Southern Black owned land. 3.5 million acres worth more than 28 billion. These landowners are vulnerable to laws and loopholes that allow speculators and developers to acquire their property. Black families watch as their land is auctioned on courthouse steps or forced into a sale against their will. They said that in the United States today, 76% of African Americans do not have a will, twice the percentage of white Americans. You all saw Prince die without a will. Aretha Franklin died without a will. Prince is, by the time Prince is done, Prince is going to donate about $100 million to white folks because he doesn't have a will in place. So what I would say to everybody is if you don't have a will, get one tomorrow, because you don't know how long you're going to be around here. But Dr. Anderson, based on what I've read, I'm not even going to ask you a question because I'm sure you have thoughts because you're a smart man and you understand this better than all of us. What are your thoughts as I lay out, these statistics and information that I just provided to you?
You're right on target, and whatever you read, that they're accurate. And that I said you got about I would guess about 3.5 million acres left, and in the South, that's in the Black Belt. That's what I was telling you about. And see, and it comes to, as I said again, because white folk are sharp and being able to use various kind of legal means to take the property from you. It's called property theft in the South. When you just move out, or they just go in and burn down the records in the courthouse and take it from you. Or they can do what they do right now, and they've been doing historically, called the American Dream. Keep bringing in a bunch of immigrants into the country and have the young white folk to go back into your areas and take it over. And they take over and dominate. They go in Washington right now, and they can pick up a house in used to be a Black neighborhood, pick up, maybe give Black folks $50,000 or $60,000 for the house, fix it up and sell it for over $1 million right now in Washington, D.C. because Blacks don't know how to keep property and improve property. But that comes again and again because of the miseducation of Black folk. Let's go back to that for a second. You made a good point earlier about charter schools. And the big sadness there is, boys, is that charters, public, who public schools came into existence for originally? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Sorry about that. I muted myself. But yeah, I'd love to have the history on public schools and why they exist. I know some things, but I know you know more than me, so I'd like to.
No, I don't always know more than you. I might know a few things different, but I don't know any more than you do. No, don't you put that blame on me. But after when slavery ended, they had to do something with these 5 million people. And so that's when the real public schools, as you know them today, came into existence. They came into existence after slavery. But the primary reason for them coming into existence was for one thing, to educate Black slaves coming out. That was the purpose of it. The public school system, as we presently know it, came into existence trying to educate almost 5 million people in the country, 5 million people who had never basically had a fair chance to have an education. So one of the last things that Black folks should be doing is cutting loose, giving up something again that came into existence for them. It came into existence for you. And so why, and that's why in Detroit, Michigan, let me go back to Detroit, Michigan again, since I worked on that one. At that time I looked around, we had about $108 billion in the United States in public schools across America. You know why charter schools came into existence? They were coming in because they want that $108 billion that's in these urban areas. When I was over education for the state of Florida, Boyce, and immigration came up, all the whites and with George Wallace and all started running hide. They said, we don't want to go to public schools anymore because we don't want to integrate with those Blacks. And what we're going to do is set up three things. One is called charter schools. That's where the charter schools came from, trying to duck Black folk and get away from Black folk in the South. 2, they're going to put up segregated academies. And 3, set up religious schools. That was the purpose. to get away from black folk. And once they set that up, then they say, now that we've set it up, but we don't have to be associated with those suckers. Now let's try to figure out ways to drain the capital. And so therefore they began to start taking away the capital by saying, well, money is not that important to the quality of an education. So they began to defund black schools across the country, give them less money than whites. And so that therefore the schools couldn't function effectively, couldn't have the textbooks, the supplies, and the best educational instructors on those grounds. And that's where the civil rights movement went wrong. In the South Carolina, where the 1954 desegregation system started, at that time, whites had everything in the schools, and they were using buses. They had the best supplies and material. Blacks didn't have anything. They were paying white kids about paying a teacher $1,250, $1,200, about a little over $12 to be exact, for every white child to go to school. They only paying $1.50 for a black child to go to school. And what black people were arguing about in South Carolina, that desegregation decision, saying what we want is equal access in terms of owning and controlling the resources in the schools. We want the same quality of education that the white kids have. White kids are riding to school on buses every day. White kids had all kind of very special kind of equipment, all kind of technology, the best books in their schools. And they had swimming pools. We swam in the creeks. And but the NAACP jumped in and took it the wrong way and says, well, we don't need the schools. Well, you cannot have an equal educational opportunity unless a black child is set beside a white kid. That's an insult. It's racist. That's a form of self-hate to say that a black kid cannot be educated unless he's sitting next to a white child. And I mean, it was dumb and stupid, but that's what they came up with. They put me over education. I asked them in Florida, I said, what do y'all mean by social integration? It's a doctor asked what we're going to do. We're going to go into all these black neighborhoods, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to close down. We're going to close down all the black schools. We're going to fire the teachers, fire the administrators, fire the counselors. Then we're going to bust 75% of the black kids out of their own neighborhoods over to the white neighborhoods where they'll be a minority. They can be controlled. We're going to put the other 25% in the special education classes. And that's sort of tearing the public schools up. That's why the public schools are dysfunctional. Now, when I go to Detroit, Michigan, I find out that half of the kids that start the first grade in Detroit, Michigan, can't even graduate from high school. And out of those who do graduate from high school, that they read at a 5th grade level. They asked me to come in and talk to the teachers. And I said, you got any money? They said, well, doctor, we don't have the money. We can't buy supplies. We don't even have books. How are you going to educate kids in a major city? They only have textbooks, no supplies and pencils and paper and anything else, not even toilet paper, because the schools are being drained. Whites are now, through charter schools, are suckling all the money out. What they wanted was that $108 billion in these public schools across America, in every urban city. Whites now set up these charter schools to go get it. Charter schools are not pushing in the better educated kids. They can't do it because you see what they're short is that they're not getting the same money for the same use, because that black kids were getting them in the public schools. They're destroying the public schools, and black people's turning them over, running away from them, just like they're running away from these urban cities. It's foolish, but it comes from being uneducated or miseducated. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I sure can. Sorry about that. I always mute myself when you're talking. But everybody, I'm talking to Dr. Claud Anderson. He's the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, and Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. I hope you'll go to powernomics.com and show support. That's powernomics.com. Also, as a reminder, a lot of you ask us how to get started investing, things like that. There's a free training we're offering you in the Black Business School on how to buy your first share of stock. All you got to do is go sign up at blackmoney100.com. That's blackmoney100.com. By the end of the year 2020, we want to see if we can get 1 million Black people invested in the stock market. That's going to also add to Black wealth. So go to blackmoney100.com and sign up. Send your relatives. Everybody should be an investor. That's one of the keys to wealth. So Dr. Anderson, let me circle back on this issue of Black land loss. It seems that a big part of the reason that we've lost so much land, I personally was floored. I don't know about you guys, but I was floored when I found out that we owned so much more land before integration than after integration. I mean, we used to own assets, and now we just own jobs. and you don't even really own a job, right? I don't know, you own slavery. I don't know what you call that, but we used to own assets, and now we own jobs, and that's just brainwashing. That's when people talk about anybody who thinks that your wealth situation is not connected to your psychology is out of their mind. Wealthy people don't get wealthy by accident. Usually they get wealthy because they think a certain way. They spend their time going after certain things. They push in a certain direction. That's why they end up with more than other people do. Just like winning a basketball game, you don't win basketball games by accident. You win basketball games because you play the right strategy. So, Dr. Anderson, one of the things I was thinking about is how the laws have been used to manipulate people out of their land, and the laws are consistently used to come after Black folks, take resources, whether it's predatory lending or anything like that. And so that made me think about, when I started doing business, one of the things I hated, and in fact, I still don't even like it, is every month I get a big bill from my lawyers. The lawyers send me a big bill. Lawyers charge you, a ton of money, but I need them, because the more resources you have, the more money you make, the more people, are gonna try to come take it. They sue you for nothing. You stepped on my big toe. I need $1 million, that kind of thing. And I hated it. But then I looked at other people that had accumulated in anything, whether it's a business or a little bit of money, and they would say the same thing. They said it's a cost of doing business. Will Smith, the actor, he says, I have 15 lawyers that I have to pay every month just to protect everything I have for my family. That made me think about the whole Black community, right? And so what that leads me to, the point I want to make here, I'd like to get your thoughts on this, is that when we talk about building Black Wall Street, when we talk about building wealth, we have to think about protecting our assets, protecting our wealth. I didn't like paying the lawyers before, but now I don't mind it, because I realized that any great empire in the history of this world always had to have an army. If you built an empire and a great civilization and you did not have a military, somebody was going to come and take your stuff. You must protect what you have. And so, in terms of the lawyers, you got thousands of Black lawyers out here that are really good. Most of them are working for white people. You got lots of Black people that could be part of that army, part of that force that either builds or protects. I don't know if we put enough thought into that. I almost feel like we think as Black people, because we're not trained to be competitive and defensive and strong, based on the things that you write about in Black Labor, White Wealth, ways we were taught to be uncompetitive. I don't know if we think that way. I think that we really believe that we can go accumulate a bunch of land and a bunch of money and a bunch of assets, and white folks ain't never gonna come try to take it. Like, what do you think? Do you think that sometimes we are trained to be so passive? That's one of the things. That's probably one of the worst things about the civil rights movement, was it was built on being passive. It was, let them come and beat you up, let them come hit you in the head with a fire hose, let them come take everything you got, and then, but at least you still have white Jesus to go pray to, and to praying that they don't come back and get him later on. It seems like it makes us weak. What do you think, Dr. Anderson?
Well, you're absolutely right. We are passive and compromised. That's one reason why white folk hate Black folk. All through history, they hate you because they're your weak, compromising people. All you want to do is be around us, be our maids, to work for us, and be in our association and be guests in what we own and control. That goes back over 360 years. There's one book I'll call Slavery and No Honor. A book, it goes to explain all that to you, because whites hate you. But the other thing is that the point you made a few minutes ago about, that just slipped my mind. I see what old age does. Go back, see you say want me to respond to something. What was it again? Yes,
the idea of us that we need to change our mindset in terms of protecting what we have.
Oh, okay, that's what I hold it right there. Right. See, and that's, again, let's go back to this point I told you about integration. That's another one of the mistakes we made with social integration. Dr. Watkins, it is absolutely impossible, again, as I said, in theory and practice, for you to protect yourself if you socially integrate. You open your legs up wide and open your fingers wide, you want to know why you got screwed open. There are two kinds of people in the world. There's screw-ers and screw-ees. Those who people can get to you and screw you early and easily, they're going to do it. There's an old saying in politics, it says, a willingness ass will carry the heaviest load. And that's what happens to Black folk. They're always compromising, acquiesce, just want to get along. And that's what the farmer says. That's it. Those donkeys out there, those mules, the biggest fool I got out there is going to carry the heaviest load. You cannot, the only way Blacks can protect themselves by having people taking their land is to do what I've told you in Black Labor, White Wealth and Powernomics. You must have a community or a broad sense of community. Now, what's the importance about a community? A community means you have a togetherness. You have a coherent group that practice two things. It has a social cohesiveness that would try to protect that which they own that's valuable in that community. That's why we go out to Beverly Hills. They're gonna build fences around it. They're gonna put patrols inside upscale neighborhoods. Anything of value, like in a bank, you put walls, you put bars on the doors, because anything of value, otherwise people come in and take it from you. That's just common sense. And if you have a Black community right now that has no damn sense of community, and they only got a neighborhoods, that's why whites come in there right now and run drugs through there. They're running drugs in your community. They're running prostitution in your community. They're coming in and now you don't have a community, coming in your neighborhood and dropping trash and dumping garbage on the corners every night. They find vacant lots in the Black neighborhoods. They go in there at night and dump old mattresses, old refrigerators. They dump their trash in Black neighborhoods. You got you're passive, you're compromised, you're wide open. You never claimed your property and it says this is ours, and locked it and boxed it. Now, once you do that, then here's how you protect yourself. Once you build that community, I don't care. That's why I want you to go back to this thing with the Harvest Festival Day. You get a sense of community. A sense of community is like a roof over your house, a roof over your head. If you had a sense of community, it's a protective device that covers covers your neighborhood, and makes it very difficult to do what you say whites will do. It makes it hard for them to come and penetrate, come into your community, to do wrong, to push drugs or prostitution or thievery, anything else. And more importantly, it makes it difficult for them to come in and push their values on you and exploit you and appropriate what they want. That's why whites could not get Black music until social integration. See, when social integration came, whites for the first time got a chance to go into Black neighborhoods. People like Elvis Presley, Carl Perkins, these guys would sit outside of Black neighborhoods on a Saturday night, outside, listen to black people in the bars playing their music and singing and dancing. They sat outside of Black churches so they hear how you sung. Because once integration came, they could come in your neighborhood and steal from you. They can steal your culture, your history, your value, anything of assets, of value to you. But if you get a community and put a sense of community, that's a protective device. They can't come in and destroy your family. They can't inject homosexuality into your family. They cannot reduce the role of a Black male in a family. They cannot come into and degrade or destroy your schools and your community and your sense of togetherness, your cohesiveness. You got to have a sense of community. We don't have a sense of community. We don't even have communities where we got Black neighborhoods, and Black neighborhoods have no covering like a roof, which would be your sense of community and sense of togetherness that was taken from you during slavery. You can't protect it. Whites can come in and do anything they want to take all your land from you. That's what gentrification is about. Gentrification is going to go into every one of these cities and strip it because Blacks have no code of conduct. They don't have a protective covering. They have no Black leadership. The Black civil rights leaders out looking out for everybody but Black folk. And so right now they are very vulnerable. I feel sorry for our people in many respects, to answer your question.
That was pretty heavy, and I think it tells us what we got to work on in the next generation. I think it's I think that we got a long way to go, but I know that I'll tell you, Dr. Anderson, there's a lot of people that you and I, I'm sure you see them as well. When you go around the world, there's a lot of people I think that are tired of this. If you're tired of this, say it. Just say I'm tired of this. If you want something different, say it. Just you say it out loud, speak it to the universe, because we had, that's the first step in us making a change, making a difference. And what I've encouraged everybody to do, Dr. Anderson, is start with your own family. Start with what happens in your household. That is your community. That's the first Black community you're going into. And it's up to you to decide how the community is going to be governed, what kind of education is going to happen, how the wealth is going to bounce around within your family, how you are going to shape the values and systems within your organization. Your family is your first community, your first corporation, your first everything, if that's what you choose it to be. So I'm encouraging everybody, start at home. I've given you blueprints on what to do with your family at home. I'm actually working on that book I told you guys about on Black economic codes of conduct. I'm a consultant with Dr. get his take on this as well, so that we can have structure in our households, so that we can form stronger communities because we have stronger families. We're in a rebuilding phase. It's going to take time, but I know that we can do this. You know, Dr. Anderson, I'll tell you this, and this will be the last point, and I'll let you. You can go after this. But you know, I was watching yesterday. I watched this video. You know, Alicia, that, you know, my woman, you know, the woman I love. You know, we were out running. She's got me training for this marathon. I'm mortified because I ain't never run that far in my life. But we're out there running. We were listening to a lecture by Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world. He owns Amazon.com. He's worth $150 billion. And he gave a speech about the future of space travel. And he laid out his blueprint for how we would actually live on either on other planets or just live in space. Actually, they're not even talking about living on other planets. They're actually talking about building entire cities in space with just a giant ship that'll hold 1 million people, where they can replicate, you know, the environment and everything else. And so he was talking about something that we can't even do now. That so far in the future, he said, we're talking about 200 years in the future. He said, but in order to build the world you want to see, you have to start with where you are, with what you have, and build the infrastructure so the next generation will have the tools necessary to move forward. So he talked about how, he said, look, when I built Amazon.com, I had to have infrastructure. He said, we couldn't afford to create a postal service, but the U.S. Postal Service was already there. That was part of our infrastructure. We already had the roads, we had the internet, we had the technology. All that infrastructure was built in previous generations so that we could build on top of that infrastructure. So what I say for the Black community is that for us to realize a vision that's going to make us great and strong 200 years from now, 150 years from now, it's up to us right now to build the infrastructure. That means we got to commit to building our own schools. We got to commit to creating our own jobs. We got to commit to bouncing our dollars in our communities. We have to commit to building children that want to create businesses that can employ tens of thousands of Black people at a time. And that will allow the next generation to come in with an infrastructure. Because that's the thing, Dr. Anderson, a lot of us, you know, that struggle now just trying to piece something together. We didn't necessarily have the infrastructure because the generation before us were into this integration thing. So there was no, when I graduated from college, there are no Black businesses for me to go work for. I got to go work for white folks. You know, when I'm growing up, there is no Black media for me to consume because all the television networks are owned by white people, all the radio stations, you know, et cetera, right? So, you know, or inheritance. We didn't have, a lot of us didn't have any inheritance to, you know, that we can build on. So I think that that's the job of our generation, similar to that speech that Bezos gave where he was talking to white folks, but I thought that was an interesting perspective. We have to build the infrastructure for our kids. And that could be basic things like just make sure you have a damn life insurance policy so your kids ain't starting from scratch. That's job one. You know, $100,000, $200,000 to get them started. That's a big deal, right? You know, maybe we have some educational and options and media options or whatever it is. Like this little media platform we have. You know, we reach a lot of people compared to what we could, but we don't reach billions of people. But we can reach a couple million every month. That's infrastructure, right? So now when we have a message for our people, we can get it out without asking for other people to help us do that, right? So I would say building that infrastructure is extremely important. Well, we need a whole generation of people committed to building. Dr. Anderson, can you kind of speak to that point and give your take on that perspective?
No, you're right on the money, and not very much more I can say. You covered it all pretty well. It's you got to start someplace. You should drop your bucket where you stand, start building what you got. And right now, as I said, Black folk are going backwards. They started with the social integration movement in this country. They lost almost everything they had. And in proportional terms, on the things you talk about on business, you know, Dr. Watson, that in comparative proportional terms, for 100,000 Blacks in America, you know, Blacks had 20 times more businesses in 1920 than you got today. Did you know that? I thought, see, you started talking about building businesses. Let me give that to you again. For 100,000 Blacks in America, and Blacks had 20 times more businesses per 100,000 Blacks in 1920 than you got today. You've been going backwards. Then you got to then about 40 years later, when you went into social integration, you wiped out everything. Social integration destroyed everything you had. Now you're back to square one. you are now guest in everything owned by everybody else. And guess what? While you're being a guest, what's happening? These immigrants can come in and eat your lunch. They're not coming here to looking for to be your brother or be people of color. They're coming here right now to take over and displace you and replace you in everything. That's why all these various immigrant groups, they have their own independent organizations that speak strictly and solely for them, to empower them. They're not coming here to empower Black folk. And the worst part about it is what our leadership doesn't understand is that all these immigrants coming to the country, their ancestors were slave owners. Every immigrant group coming here was coming from people who were slave owners, not slavees. And even these gays coming in, gays own slaves. Everybody has abused, misused, exploited, and deprived Black folk on the earth in every continent. And whether it's in Latin America or Central America, Africa, Europe, everybody has exploited and enriched themselves off of Black folk. Yet Black folk have never enriched themselves by playing the game of group economics or powernomics to play the game. And so therefore, in the future, again, as you said, tell them to go to powernomics.com and get those books and start reading some of this stuff so they understand it. They can get the whole library pack, all 5 books for $99. It'll tell them everything they need to know about race matters in this country for the last 1,400 years. And it'll take them through them at 200 miles an hour. And the second thing, when they own that powernomics.com, as I mentioned to you last time, I set up my own little YouTube on there now. When they go to the powernomics.com, they can look at the banner and go right over to what's called a YouTube and push that button. And they see my perspective on and commentaries on a whole variety of issues, the daily issues that are coming up. I'll discuss them at that time on the YouTube. And on every Thursday, I'll be discussing with the same thing or different things or relating things with Dr. Boyce Watkins. And but you're right on the money. And Black folk are not practicing group economics, they're practicing group politics. Whites are gonna rip them off. They're gonna be gentrified to death pretty soon across this nation. Oh, the last point about that is that, let me show you one other thing. There's a book I had, it's called Hitler's Willing Executioners. And that book focuses on some of the issues I've been telling you about. I'm not encouraging people to go read it. It's written by a Jewish guy back in the 1950s. It's a thick book, so don't waste your money buying it. But what he's saying is that you are in a world of trouble when about 4 or 5 things started happening to you. Here's about some of them. One, he says, if you are an out group in a society where they practice the rule, a majority will win and a minority will lose. He said, you're endangered. That's the first thing. 2, particularly if you're a permanent minority, that's like Black folk are a permanent minority in that society. 3, if every time you show up in the media, it's something negative about you. Very seldom is anything positive about you. That's it right there. You got it. That's it. How'd you get that so fast?
Technology.
Well, you got it.
Yeah, this is what I do every day, so it's easy for me. But I wanted everybody to see the cover. It's Daniel Jonah Goldhagen.
Yeah, that's right. He was saying how the Jews got set up for extermination in Europe, in Germany, right before World War II, starting by 1933 when von Braun passed and Hitler took over as Vice Chancellor. They started set up this thing to exterminate Jews. But anyway, those 3 things I mentioned to you. 4 is that when you all of a sudden your leadership begins to disappear and begins to join the multitudes of the dominant group. That's what happened with Black folk after the Civil Rights Movement. They gave up on their own people and joined a group called Political Correctness and Benign Neglect. So let's go with the masses. 5 is that all of a sudden when everybody is boycotting your businesses, Jews, they started boycotting Jews' businesses and putting them out. That's why you don't have any Black businesses. They started taking over your property. That's what's going on right now in all these gentrification situations across America. He said, when all those things begin to happen, he said, you're going to be in a world of trouble. You're being set up to being exterminated or eradicated from the face of the earth. This is a big, thick book. He said, that's what it's about. Hitler's willing executioner. That's why 6 million Jews supposedly were wiped out. He said, you watch these signs, and if you see those signs, you better start watching, being careful of what's going on around you. Keep both eyes open.
All right. All right. Did y'all get that? I hope that y'all got that. And I also hope that you'll go to Dr. Anderson's website, powernomics.com, and shop for your family. School's starting up pretty soon. I think the school year in the Black community should be year round, and the educational system for your child starts in the home. You are the mother, you are the father, you are the educator. If your child if your child can't read, I'm gonna look at you. I'm not looking at that teacher, because it's not that teacher ain't gonna love your child the way you do. If your child can't do math and your child can't write, I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you. So let's make sure our kids are ready. Maybe offer them a couple dollars to read. That's what I do with the kids, Dr. Anderson. To get them to learn financial concepts. Anytime they ask me for anything, like we have these entrepreneurship flashcards. Anytime they ask me for anything, they say, "Hey, can we stop at McDonald's?" They know the routine. I say, "So what do you think I'm gonna say next?" They'll say, "Okay, I'll learn 2 flashcards," and so I have them learn 2 financial concepts, and then we can go to McDonald's or whatever it is they want to do. I don't, don't nothing come free in this house, because that ain't how the world works. I tell them I'm not a welfare office. We don't do things that way. When you want something out of life, you better be ready to go earn it. If you ain't ready to earn it, then you don't want it bad enough. So
That's right.
So challenge your children, encourage them, and then what's going to happen is you're going to spark a match inside of them, and they're going to remember you 30, 40 years from now. They're going to pay homage to you, the fact that you invested in them while they were young. So powernomics.com is Dr. Anderson's website. Next month, Dr. Anderson and I will be in Los Angeles for Harvest Festival Day. If you want to fly to LA, it's a beautiful place. It's a wonderful place, wonderful Black people. It's an amazing environment. Come on in. I think you guys will like it. You can go to drboyslosangeles.com to learn more. It'll be the weekend of August 10th. I'll be there for 2 days. I'll do an investment seminar the second day, and we'll do Harvest Festival Day with Dr. Rosie Milligan on the 10th. And also Chicago. I'll be in Chicago this weekend on Sunday, 3 days from now. There won't be any tickets at the door, any passes at the door. So you got to go online, go to drboychicago.com if you want to join us. And that's pretty much it. So Dr. Anderson, I want to say thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, buddy. And I look forward to talking to you next week. And in between, whenever you're not here, I miss you. You become a habit to me now. So I do look forward to seeing and talking with you every week. And I love you for it. And tell our people, please go out and practice group economics and group politics as fast as they can. And watch out for Hitler's Williams executioners, because we have some of the same thing called Black executioners. They call them Sambos, Uncle Toms, and anything else. Seeking meritorious manumission and trying to do their own people in, okay?
Yes, sir. I look forward to it. Take good care of yourself.
Take care, everybody.
See you guys later. Hit the thumbs up button before you go and everything else. I'll see you guys next week. Take care.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right. Bye-bye now.